If you want to understand how cities actually survive war, you have to look past official ration books and government speeches. For about a minute, just stay with this thought. Every major war produces the same contradiction. States promise order, fairness and control, yet hunger, scarcity and fear spread faster than any decree. When shelves empty and paychecks lose meaning, people don't stop trading. They adapt, quietly, illegally, and often ruthlessly. The wartime black market isn't a footnote to history. It's the hidden infrastructure that keeps millions alive when formal systems fail. For serious historians and survival-minded thinkers, this is where reality lives. Not in propaganda posters, but in alleys, back rooms, and whispered exchanges that decide who eats, who starves, and who gains power. Wartime black markets emerge because rationing never matches reality. Governments ration to control scarcity, but rationing always assumes predictable needs and honest compliance. War destroys both. In London during the Blitz, official rations provided calories on paper, but not enough nutrition in practice. In Nazi-occupied Paris, ration cards existed, but food simply wasn't available through legal channels. The gap between what the state promised and what people needed created an economic vacuum, and black markets filled it instantly. Farmers sold produce off the books, transport workers skimmed goods mid-route, and shopkeepers hid stock for trusted buyers. The lesson is structural. Whenever centralized distribution fails to reflect real conditions, informal markets form automatically. This pattern repeats from ancient sieges to 20th century total war. The shadow economy fed cities when legal supply chains collapsed. Urban centres cannot produce their own food at scale, and war makes transport unreliable. Black markets reconnected broken supply chains using trust networks instead of paperwork. During World War II, food flowed into cities through personal relationships rather than official permits. A butcher knew a farmer, a railway worker knew when inspections were lax, and a middleman coordinated exchanges for cash, jewellery or favours. These networks were fragile but flexible, able to reroute overnight when bombs fell or checkpoints tightened. From a survival perspective, this shows why decentralized systems outlast rigid ones. When authority becomes predictable, informal trade becomes adaptive. Black markets reshaped class power and social hierarchy during war. Scarcity turns access into power. Those with rural connections, transport access, or stored goods gained influence far beyond their pre-war status. In occupied Europe, a mechanic with fuel access could wield more power than a bureaucrat with rank. Meanwhile, salaried professionals and civil servants often fell hardest because their income remained fixed while prices exploded. This inversion matters because it reveals how quickly social order can flip under stress. Survival advantage did not belong to the educated or the obedient, but to those who controlled movement, storage, and exchange. Understanding this helps modern viewers recognize which roles become critical in any systemic breakdown. The risks of black market participation were real and often deadly. Romanticizing black markets, well, it misses the cost. Smugglers were executed, traders imprisoned, and buyers publicly shamed. Yet participation kept rising because, honestly, the alternative was starvation. In Leningrad during the siege, illegal trade in bread, sawdust flour, and even wallpaper paste became a lifeline. Risk calculation shifted completely. When survival odds drop below a certain threshold, legality becomes irrelevant. For historians, this really underscores how moral frameworks change under pressure. For survivalists, it highlights a hard truth. Preparation is about reducing the need to take desperate risks when enforcement tightens. Barter replaced money when currencies lost meaning. Inflation and shortages made cash unreliable. Goods with direct utility became currency. Cigarettes, alcohol, soap, sewing needles and fuel traded consistently across conflicts because, well, they met immediate needs and could be divided easily. This wasn't chaos. It was a functional alternative economy. People learned relative values quickly, adjusting based on season, location, and enforcement intensity. The practical application today is simple and, honestly, a bit uncomfortable. Skills and tangible goods hold value longer than numbers in an account when systems fracture. Knowing how to trade without money is not primitive, it's historically proven resilience. Black markets expose the limits of state control in total war. Even the most authoritarian regimes failed to eliminate informal trade. Nazi Germany, the Soviet Union, and Imperial Japan all fought black markets aggressively and lost. Enforcement costs rose, corruption spread, and officials quietly participated. The shadow economy didn't undermine the war effort as much as it compensated for state failure. This complicates the idea that order comes from control alone. Real stability came from parallel systems operating beneath official narratives. Historians should see this as evidence that human networks outperform rigid hierarchies under extreme stress. Applying these lessons today means thinking in systems, not fantasies. The takeaway isn't to glorify illegality, but to understand mechanisms. Cities survive when supply routes diversify, trust networks form, and people retain tradable skills. Practical steps follow naturally. Learn where essential goods originate, not just where you buy them. Build relationships across different economic roles rather than relying on institutions alone. Store items that solve problems, not luxuries. Understand how quickly value shifts when scarcity hits. History doesn't repeat perfectly, but human responses to scarcity are remarkably consistent. Why wartime black markets remain one of history's most important survival lessons. The shadow economy fed cities not because it was efficient or moral, but because it was human. It adapted faster than governments and responded directly to need. For serious students of history and survival, ignoring black markets means ignoring how societies actually function under stress. These systems weren't exceptions. They were the rule when official order cracked. If this deep dive sharpened how you think about history, survival, and real-world systems under pressure, subscribe to Iron Age Instincts, share this with someone who studies collapse seriously, and keep digging beneath the surface.